This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello and welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Berryfield. I'm joined by my good buddy, Mike Regalado.
What's up, y'all?
From Bruin Report Online.
Iron Mike.
Hi, bro.
And we're here to do a show for you. I don't know. Is it the end of UCLA men's basketball? UCLA women's basketball still number one? Yeah. UCLA football? Bunch of new guys? Who the hell knows? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we get to that, it's What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show network. Thank you for your support. At What's Bruin Show on the Twitter, X, whatever. What's Bruin Show at gmail.com. what'sbruin.substack.com. You can show your support there. Thank you very much for that. Just this week, we published on this same feed. Jamaal did a West Coast bias, which we appreciate from him. Thank you so much.
You're just all about the West Coast bias. You don't like the East Coast.
And on the subscriber feed, you got a bare minimum, long overdue bare minimum.
The bare minimum.
From freaking September, of all things. It was an episode that I recorded with Megan after her first performance marching with the Cal band. So that was fun up there at University of Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. And that was fun. And after this episode, I'm going to publish the episode that we did of the bare minimum.
The bare minimum.
After the Miami comeback win against Cal at Cal's homecoming, which is a giant debacle for those Bear fans. So go Bears and screw Miami and whatever. But that'll be fun to listen to as well. And you can get that on the bare minimum feed, or also if you're a subscriber, you'll get that directly into your feed as well. So thank you very much for your support once again. You can look at the show notes for my locker site that has some merch that I may or may not have access to the accounting for. So if you buy something, okay, cool. I hope you get it. And I hope that at some point money comes to us for that, but who knows? And also, there's a WS hotline.
We should look into that.
Yeah, it's on the to-do list. Pretty far down. But
it's been a busy year, Jake, and it's only like, what, the 14th?
I'm already
I'm tired of this
I'm already
crap.
Underwater, pal.
Oh, my God.
You can call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS.
Sucker Rain Troy.
Sucker Rain Troy. And no calls this week, and that's fine. We had some calls last week. Thank you very much for your support as well. Mike, I just want to kind of get right to it. Do you, number one, Mike was here diligently. I, for various reasons, was delayed. So we're starting a little bit late, but it's fine. We're still within the window. But I haven't even barely talked to Mike. Mike sat down, plugged in his headphones, and now we're going. So, Mike, do you have any like headlines or anything type of stuff?
Bro.
Yeah, a couple things. First off, we're going to get into women's basketball in a second, but if you did not know at this point, the game on Wednesday, when this podcast will be published, so if you're going to the game and you hear this, hopefully you catch it in time, but the game has been moved from Poly Pavilion to the Pyramid in Long Beach State just because of the fires, which I have a bone to pick. Fires, F you, except for heating my food and heating me and my family. But burning people's stuff, that's bad. I didn't actually, you know what? Right now, Jake, I just want to say, especially because you are one of them, thank you to all the first responders that have been like just killing it. The pilots, the super scoopers who are just like bosses, picking up seawater and dumping it on flames. Cheers to all of you. Cheers to all of the volunteers who have helped out because of these tragedies. I unfortunately know a few people who have lost their homes. And even our dear friend Jim Bendette, he was close to that. Fortunately, from what we've heard, he's still
Silver
safe.
on the clear.
So yeah, it's been just a freaking fricked up week. So if you're kind of in a daze or if you're just kind of out of it, I totally understand. We're with you, and we're bringing you some sports to get you, to distract you from it if you have been affected by it. But yeah, thank you to all of those that have helped out. But yeah, just really quickly. So the women's game is at the beach.
Go Beach.
6:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Also, Bro talked to UCLA great James Washington who recently started the new football NIL collective, Bruins for Life. So check that out. He gives information on the genesis of the NIL collective and what their plans are and how they go about working with the football team to get the funds needed to bring in quality players, especially from the transfer portal. And thirdly, actual football news about the football team. They received another commitment last week.
What's brewing? News. Breaking news on a weekly basis.
News just in.
Go ahead, Mike.
Caden Robinson is joining his quarterback, Joey Aguilar, in Westwood. Both of them played at Appalachian State last season, and yeah, they're getting a pretty quality transfer wide receiver. So that's pretty good, especially since UCLA has been doing pretty freaking well in the transfer portal. Unfortunately, they lose some guys that were near and dear to our hearts, but they've really recouped. So good on them. And Jake, you have something to say about this, or at least a friend of the show has something to say about this.
Well, yeah, no, the Godfather Jim Bendat, while he has been spending the week being evacuated from his home, he also had some time on his hands to track down some information about this new receiver. Another report from his friend Tom Hastings, who is an App State person. And he says, this is from Tom Hastings on Robinson. This is a big loss for App State. He was a 3-star out of high school, Asheville, North Carolina. He has length and was the Mountaineers' deep threat. Caught 50-plus balls last year. Not a burner, but runs good routes. He is a gamer. Robinson is definitely a good pickup for the Bruins. And Tom says he will have to start cheering for West Coast Mountaineers because now we got a pair of them out here. So that's good news, I think. It's a good pickup for the Bruins. I don't think the wide receiver room was where they were desperately in need of talent, but you know they've lost some big bodies over the last couple years, and certainly this type of receiver is a guy that should be very, very useful for him. So yeah, I'm happy about that. And it's also a guy that's got like instant chemistry with the quarterback he's brought in. So they can be, roomies and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that type of stuff, we'll probably talk about this a little bit, but when you're turning over, 40% of your roster, the things you can do to make guys comfortable in your program and help them buy in better are probably, are going to be even more beneficial than they would have been if you have, a consistent roster. And so this is kind of part of the new era of college football, I think. But, having guys transfer in kind of batches so they, there are ways that could go wrong too. But I think this, should be a positive thing in addition to the guy just sounds like a good player.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So, yeah, Deshaun Foster continues to kill it. We'll see how much he kills it properly in the fall as he tries to figure out what he wants with his new team. As we said last year, he has such a turnover with both staff and roster, mostly because we talked about this, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. He came into this game late. He was hired late. He had to put together a coaching staff late. And unfortunately, or fortunately, for some of them, he's made changes to where he sees fit. Obviously, the offense wasn't there. The defense has been, pretty good. So there's been a lot of turnover. So it's been one hell of an offseason for Deshaun Foster. So good on him for really rolling up his sleeves and getting in the transfer portal and pulling guys that could most likely help out next season.
He's certainly been busy. We'll be able to classify it as, quote, killing it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, because who knows if and how these guys that are coming in are going to be able to contribute. But it's certainly better than, it looks better than, looks possibly better than what it looked like it would have been at the end of the season, right? And we'll get more of that in a little bit. But first, let's shut down the the Brofield headlines.
It's been 6 years, Jake.
I know.
It's been 6 years. Get over it.
I know. 2025. Goodness, it's all a blur. It's all a blur to me. And let's get to
seriously.
Isn't it? And so let's get right to some basketball-y talk, I guess. Mike's over here waving his arms at me saying we need to talk about football first. And I'm just like, normally, yeah, because you know where I stand always, even during basketball
I would
season.
like to avoid the basketball shows for as long as possible.
However, I am trying to throw my guy, Mr. Mike Regalado, Mr. Champion of
Mike Regalado,
women's sports and whatnot. Like, we have a football team that has done some stuff, right? But it is the offseason, solidly the offseason now.
Yeah.
We have a men's basketball team that's lost 4 in a goddamn row at 5 out of 6. And they certainly aren't anything to really celebrate right now. It's like, they're in turmoil, to say the least. But we do have an undefeated women's team that's, number 1 in the country. So why don't we talk about that real quick?
Okay, I'm fine.
You stretch your legs out, Mike. You
well,
talk
kind of
about
like a
as long as you want.
Kind of like a headliner.
Yes.
Since UCLA women's basketball is the only team right now that is really worth talking about as performing. I kind of wanted, I figured we would talk basketball second.
Oh, you want so you want to do concert style, like close?
Well,
with,
we don't have to, but at the same time, putting your best foot forward is also a good option as well.
Let's just do that.
Let's do it.
I already played the theme.
All right,
so
let's
Mike,
do it.
you said it a minute ago. The next game is going to be at the Pyramid. Go Beach. They had a game postponed against the Godfather Jim Bennat's Northwestern Wildcats.
Yeah.
And then I think since the last time we talked, have they already beaten Purdue? I don't even remember.
Yeah, that was when was it? I think that was a Wednesday. I don't know. Okay,
we might as well
also
lead with the ladies because there's not a whole lot to talk about other than they're still awesome and they're still kicking ass, and we expect them to keep kicking ass as far as we know. Correct?
Exactly. So their game was Tuesday. We did. Yeah, that's right. We did our podcast on Monday because I had to
cover basketball.
Cover basketball.
Bloodletting at the hands of Michigan.
Woof. So yeah, both the women's and men's teams were again on Tuesday. And really quickly, before I actually get into women's basketball, I have a bone to pick with the Big Ten. Okay, so look, the Pac-12 had it good. There were a lot of things the Pac-12 did not do right, but what they did correctly was having men's basketball games on roughly Thursday, Saturday, women's games on Saturday, Sunday. The Big Ten has this rule that teams are supposed to have 2 games in between, 2 days off in between games. So that basically puts both men's and women's basketball schedules all over the freaking week. I understand that Mick Cronin was upset about it. Although Corey Close hasn't said anything about the schedule. She goes and plays. That's not a shot against Mick Cronin, but he has a point. What is going on with having 2 days in between? You play Friday and then you play Monday, and then apparently they did a red eye, so they got back probably at 3 a.m. LA time last night. It's just freaking frustrating, just because and especially with those days where you have and I'm still yet to see if any other teams, but I'm pretty sure they have. But when you have UCLA beat writers trying to cover both men's and women's basketball, it does us a disservice to have both of those games on the same day. Yes, I get that, maybe one's on Monday, one's on Tuesday, one's on Friday, one's on Sunday. Yeah, that's fine. But this whole schedule is just stupid.
And so what you're getting at, not just them playing at the same time, which makes it hard for the ink stain wretches, or I should say, what are you stained with now that you no longer, that newspaper reporters don't really write anymore? I don't know, keyboard challenged wretches or whatever. You broke your shift key or something. Yeah. But other than complaining about them happening at the same time, right? Just logistically speaking, what you're saying is in the Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever, from the for what we had before was you play on Thursday, you have a day off, and you play on Saturday. Typically, there were always exceptions. There were sometimes Wednesdays, Sundays, whatever. You'd
play Thursday, and then you wouldn't play Sunday. But the difference was that you would play on the West Coast, or one of the teams in the Mountain. But that's a what? But 2-hour trip at maximum.
But yeah, and what you're saying is that it'll be a Thursday and a Saturday.
Yeah,
for the most part. But now, not only are you going farther instead of just going up the coast, and sometimes just a quick little trip with a day in between, now, or you're going up to, or let's say you're going up to play the Oregon schools. You go up to Oregon, you play in Autzen, not Autzen, in Eugene, and then you have a hotel. You probably practice somewhere, and then you play the next day after the game at Corvallis or whatever, and then you come home. Whereas now I don't know if you know this, Mike, but for the women's team, they had the at Indiana, at Purdue swing. So they play at Indiana, fly out there, and now they have to like wait around for 2 days to play Purdue.
Yeah.
And then they come back, which just extends everybody's week on a big long trip that much more. Is that kind of what,
Yeah, and it's
that seems kind of unwieldy to me as well. I never would have thought of that.
And then, I know that there are, people question like, oh, are they student athletes? Are they really students? Well, yeah, technically they still are. They're still going to school, and they still have to keep their grades up to be able to perform with their teams. But yeah, who does UCLA play on Friday? They play Iowa. Apparently Iowa is at USC tonight on Tuesday. So Iowa's here an entire week. So if you're worried about student athletes being students, it makes no sense for them to miss an entire week of school.
Yeah,
that's the same thing kind of with the weekend thing for UCLA wasn't bad. You miss Monday and Friday, but you could be back on a Sunday if the game was on a Sunday. But check this out. Upcoming for women's basketball. The Penn State game, obviously, it's on Wednesday at Long Beach State. Then they don't play until Monday against Baylor in the Coretta Scott King Classic. That one is actually in San Francisco because that's a classic. That's something new that they're doing this year.
Oh, geez.
So Monday in I'm sorry, no, not San Francisco. That's in Newark, New Jersey.
Geesh.
On a Monday.
So wait, they play at the Pyramid of Penn. Then they got to go to the East Coast to play Baylor.
To play Baylor, it's a 4-person multi-team event in Newark, New Jersey. Then 3 days later, they're at Rutgers, which is also in New Jersey, and then 3 days after that, they're at Maryland.
So you're saying
I guess technically UCLA could come back after the Baylor game.
Why would they?
Exactly. If you're in New Jersey, why not just stay there? But if that is the case, that's an entire week gone from them. And how do you it's. I'm sure that they have they've made plans to practice at certain facilities or whatnot, but how much more comfortable is it to come home and practice in your own facility? And
and obviously that's sort of a unique quirk of the schedule where they're playing this exhibition sort of style non-conference game in the middle of their conference schedule, which that's college basketball and that happens. But just to your point, and what you're bringing, the overall issue is. The Big Ten has this rule about 2 days in between these games. And when you're talking about all the traveling for this national conference now, is that something they need to go back and re-examine?
Oh, hell yeah, they do.
What is worse for the student athlete, right? Is it having to make all of these trips when you have a road trip on a particular week, extending it by 2 or 3 days to what it could have been, theoretically? Or is it... or is it the strain of playing 2 games in 3 days? And I think, just from what you're saying, Mike, and what it sounds like to me, I think I agree with you. I think that playing the 2 games in 3 days is much preferable to these, athletes that are, otherwise having to extend the road trips every 5 times a year.
Yeah, and then when you get to tournament time, I mean, if you're one of the lower seeded teams, you're going to have to play if you want a chance at the championship, you're going to have to play what 4 or 5 games in a row. When it comes time to NCAA tournament, you're definitely going to play 2 games in 3 days. So this is just very bizarre that the Big Ten has this 2 days off in between games rule. Just set it nicely. That's an actual rule.
Basketball rule.
That's a Big Ten rule.
Olympic sport rule. I'm saying, does it apply only to basketball? Or does it apply like volleyball and all these other sports too?
I would assume. I would assume so. But but it is a Big Ten rule. Yeah, because clearly the Pac-12 didn't have it. And I learned about this a few weeks ago over Christmas break because Don McLean was talking about it on Petros and Money. How there has to be 2 days in between games, which is just stupid.
That does seem silly. All right, well, Mike, good
compress
job.
it, but anyway. Excuse me. Anyway, bringing it back down to Westwood. Yeah, so Northwestern didn't travel to Los Angeles because they were thinking about the player safety with all the fires. they didn't cancel but postponed. So the Big Ten is looking into rescheduling Northwestern's Los Angeles swing with both UCLA and USC. How, when, we'll see. Well, they have 2 days in between games, so might as well.
When it happens the next time, maybe the Godfather will be in a position where, it'll be easier for him to go to the game.
Exactly. And so basically UCLA hasn't played, by the time they play their next game, it'll be 8 days since they played their last game, which, that's fine in non-conference, but this is conference time where this is a very tough conference, as we talked about, although UCLA does have a bit of a light stretch. Well, they did have a light stretch with Purdue, Northwestern, Penn State, and then Rutgers. But then that game at Maryland, holy crap, that's going to be a huge game. Maryland, I think, is the third highest ranked team in the AP poll. So that's going to be a huge game when UCLA goes out there. But right now,
and that's the last day of that big long ass trip that we're talking about.
Yes,
theoretically, they stay the night or whatever.
Yeah, the of next week. Yeah. So in the game against Purdue, I mean, Purdue is just not a good team, and sure enough, UCLA whooped on them 83-49. And in that game, Lauren Betts, we say only 17 points and 7 rebounds, but she did not have to do much. She only played 22 minutes. Kiki Rice only played 17 minutes. London Jones only 25. They really went into the bench because they could. Purdue just not good at all. And UCLA, sure enough, they dominated the hell out of that game. And I think they jumped out to like the 20-point lead in the first quarter, close to it. Definitely in the second half, they only allowed Purdue to score 6 points. I think UCLA started that game 12-0, 13-0, something like that.
I'm just looking at the graph, and it just starts really
ballooned,
close together,
right?
and it gets really far apart.
They just totally destroyed Purdue. But that was also a good game to let some of the bench players that don't have a lot of time, haven't played a lot, to get in there. Especially one of my favorites, Zania Saka Newman, who she's a forward. And she's a bit of a project. She's pretty raw, but has some freaking talent. And I think she's going to be one of the key post players in the future. So letting her, Avery Kane, Kendall Dudley, all the freshmen play. This was good. So it was a really good experience for all of them. But yeah, the starters didn't have to do much. But that's why I was a little bit worried about the Northwestern game being canceled, because if you have your best players only playing 22 minutes, 17 minutes, and that's the only time that they've played, you hope that they're not rusty going into their next game. Although the game again, Penn State is not great as well. They have a really talented center. I'm blanking on her first name. I know it's Merkel, their center. 6'6". She's definitely going to give Lauren Betts, who's 6'7", a run for her money. But they have some scorers after that, but it kind of fades off. I think Merkel is averaging 15, 16 points a game. The next two after that are 11 points a game. And, talented, but for the most part, they're just not as put together as UCLA, especially when you have Rice and Jones and Dugalich and Jaquez, coming up in the last few weeks. You have... Janiah Barker, who's just been a freaking beast on the board. She has been absolutely freaking on fire. So yeah, I think this is another game in which, hopefully, and especially since they're not at home, it's going to be a home game, but they're not at home. Hopefully they're not disjointed. They're not off. They don't have focus. Because that's one thing Corey Close has been on the team about. I'm a little bit worried. But I think this team, here's how I think it'll go. We'll start slow, probably into the second quarter, and then they'll just run away with it when they realize, oh shit, we're the Bruins. We're the number one team in the nation. Let's put this team away. But it is just weird, this whole circumstances behind it. But hopefully the Bruins will be back. I don't foresee anything getting delayed, especially after, when next week, when UCLA is gone for a week. So yeah, the Bruins will be back to Pauley Pavilion against Minnesota on February 2nd. So it's a bit. that's a bit of time between now and then. But the Bruins will be pretty much okay. I'm looking at that Maryland game, and that's going to be an interesting one to see. So
yeah, well, and you talk about that Maryland game being against a top 10 opponent, one of the better opponents in the Big Ten, along with the Bruins. But it's also the start of a stretch where they play 5 ranked teams currently ranked teams in 6 games. So that's they have Baylor, Rutgers, and then at Maryland, and then they host Minnesota and Ohio State, who are 24 and 9 respectively. Then they're at Oregon, who's not ranked right now. And then SC, number 4 in the country. That's going to be a super huge matchup at SC. And then Michigan State hosting Michigan State on the February 16th. So between now and February 16th,
Spartans are ranked, right?
Spartans are ranked, 22nd. So like I said, between now and February 16th, they're going to be playing 5 ranked opponents out of whatever that is, 8 games. So there you go.
Yay!
Test for your number 1 Bruins. So we'll see how the ladies do, and good luck to them. Now, let's, shift our attention over to the men's basketball. Ugh, I guess, do we have to?
Right.
Barf. I went for the last victory. Who knew? Who knew? Basketball. So, the men's basketball team
Woof.
is not number 1 in the country.
No.
The men's basketball team,
They were 15th, then they were 22nd,
is,
and then they didn't even receive 1 vote this week.
and why would they? When you go on a 4-game losing streak or 5 out of 6 game losing streak, this all started against North Carolina, the losers by 2 points. Tough game that they lost, and we're like, it's not the end of the world. Gee whiz. They bounced back and they beat Gonzaga.
Yeah, so 5 and 6, yeah.
Nice big game. They won by 3 points. I was there. The Godfather, Megan, Marilyn were there, and that was great. And then all downhill from there. They get beat up by Nebraska. What's the common thread here? They get beat up by Michigan, and they get beat up by Maryland, and then they get run by Rutgers in the second half, sort of thingy. And 4 Big Ten losses in a row, and just absolute tears for.
And they were brutal losses. They weren't close. The closest one was Nebraska, and that one, 8-point loss. Woof.
Yeah. So, and now the Bruins, who were, had a pretty good Big Ten record to start, because they started with the 2 wins against their, former Pac-12 partners, was that Washington, Oregon swing. And now your UCLA Bruins men's basketball team is at the very bottom of the conference, only above the Northwestern Wildcats, go Cats, the Washington Huskies, go Dogs, and the, row the boating, even though it's the basketball team, Minnesota Golden Gophers. Those are the only teams that the Bruins are ahead of in the standings at this point. And that's just a shame. Where is my what? That's a shame, because it is a shame. No,
what a shame.
What a shame.
Shame.
I don't know why my board is clipping all these drops right now, but
Shame.
I had to reload all these or something.
Shame.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyways, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but just about any particular game, do you want to get into anything? I have an overall take that I am kind of wondering about, but I'll save that for after you get into anything in particular you want to about these particular games.
There's actually a lot to talk about, but just briefly, we last recorded on a Monday, so they played Michigan on a Tuesday. They lost 94-75, and that they lost to a team that had a couple of quality bigs, which really showed UCLA's Achilles heel, which is the fact that they don't really have a solid center. They've been putting Bilodeau at the 5. Yeah. And even last week, we were talking about how Bilodeau and Mara, that's a pretty good combination. But we're not seeing a lot of Mara.
Yeah, if they play him.
If they play him. Against Maryland, at Maryland, they just got smacked, 79-61. Mick Cronin went off on that game, calling his players delusional and soft, which was interesting. He got a lot of attention for that, both good and bad. And then, what was it? Against at Rutgers, They lose 75-68. With about 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left, Cronin gets tossed for apparently saying "F you" to the ref, and he didn't even have a technical. It went from technical to "you're gone," and he didn't even stop. And I think I saw a high five with the Rutgers coach, but he just walked off. And at that point, everything just went downhill, or I more accurately continued to go downhill because these are just bad losses, and there was that I study the stats every week, both offense and defense, and the offense was pretty good around the North Carolina, Gonzaga. Even though they lost to North Carolina, there was still some good offense. It's just been not great. It's been horrendous. 3-point shooting. They're shooting in general.
Yeah, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 to 42% all these games.
Yeah, and it's
getting out rebounded.
Yeah, and then just looking at the trend lines, like everything is just going in the wrong direction. Offensive numbers, you would preferably like those to go up, just on a sharp decline. Defense of all things, those numbers are going up. They are allowing so much more from opponents than they did, and yeah, tougher competition. But I mean, you shouldn't really say that you have tough competition against Rutgers, who they were picked to beat.
Talented Rutgers team.
Yeah.
2 supposed top 5 picks or top 10 picks or whatever on the Rutgers team, but they've sucked.
Yeah.
They've been bad.
And
it's not a game you want to lose.
I mean, Jake, I know this is like nerd talk across, the airways, but that's bad for defense.
Yeah.
You see the trend line. It's almost as steep as some of these hills up in the North Valley.
Well, and that happens when Michigan shoots 61% and 62%, and Maryland shoots 55% or 54%.
And what did they shoot in the? Who was it? No, it was Michigan. 53% from the 3-point line.
That's kind of hard to tangle with.
Yeah, and it's just bad defense. It's letting guys get good open looks. I saw a lot of Alfred Matador defense in the last 2 games where they're just letting guys. I wouldn't say but they're not able to keep up with guys who are just driving the side of the lane and just laying up shots. I have no idea what is going on. This seems like a completely different team. This actually seems a lot closer to last year's team than it does like the Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, Johnny Juzang teams.
Certainly that Maryland game was like that, and like they were just kind of DOA, right? They were they were getting beat that whole game. The Michigan game and the Rutgers game, like the Michigan game, they were kind of in it, 63-62 with 10 minutes left.
And whoa, in Michigan,
and then Michigan just stomps on them.
Weren't they down like 18 to Michigan, and they come back and take the lead?
Yeah,
and then they stalled, and Michigan goes on a late game run.
And then the Rutgers game, they're leading for most of the first half, and then they come out, and then Rutgers kind of leads a lot of the second half. But at the very end of the game, 2 minutes left, it's 63-62.
Yeah,
Rutgers, and they just kind of give it up, end up losing by losing by 7 points in that game. And so we can talk about what we think the prospects are going forward for this team. Will they win another Big Ten game? I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll beat Washington, I suppose. Washington's pretty crappy this year. But coming up on the schedule, they host Iowa and Wisconsin. Are both those games are going to be at Pauley, Mike, or did they get moved to?
So far, they're both at Pauley.
Both at Pauley.
I think everything in regards to
that's going to be
change of venue, postponements, is done after this week, because I think we're as a city, as a county, moving past this stupid freaking week of,
thank goodness,
and
that's Friday,
hurricane fire winds.
It's crazy.
But that game is on Friday, but that seems far enough into the future where things are handled. Like I came to the Valley, I was hoping to see like little plumes of smoke. Nothing, not at all. So good, thank God. But that's also good for like air quality and travel and all that. So that game should go on. There has been no talk about it being postponed or
Iowa,
location moved.
Then Wisconsin, and then Washington and at Washington at SC. And then Oregon and Michigan State and Penn State. Those are all hosted at Pauley.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we were thinking that this is going to be a fun team to watch, high seed in the tournament, and everything's all rosy, and they're going to go through the Big Ten schedule and probably take some lumps, but also
And we weren't the only
win a lot
ones.
of games. I mean, consensus said that, right?
Yeah.
That's why they were ranked. That's why they were ranked pretty high. That's why they broke back up in the standings. And now it just doesn't look like that. And it's like there's been times in the Mick Cronin era where we've had these skids, and he's turned it around. And so would I be surprised if they get it all turned around and they start playing hard and they start winning games again?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I would be surprised.
Not at all. No.
But there's no guarantee of that right now, given the way that they're malfunctioning and the shortcomings that they seem to have in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And I mean, and they're not atrocious. I mean, they beat Oregon. Yeah, sure, last second shot. But hey, Oregon wasn't good enough to have the lead when the clock went 0-0-0. They beat Arizona with really good defense. They scored 111 points against Prairie View A&M. So there is some offense. The North Carolina game, that just, I was like, that was just weird. That could have gone either way, honestly. I mean, they lost by 2 points. And then they handled Gonzaga. Like, that was the game against Gonzaga was a legitimate win. That was like they put, everything on the line, and they came away with a 3-point victory, shut Gonzaga down for that. That was the fewest amount of points. Gonzaga at that time was the number 1 team in the nation in scoring offense. They only allowed them 62 points. I think they averaged something like 86, 88, something like that. So that's impressive as hell. But it all went away. It all went away.
But that was a impressive as hell game. But what was the worrying factor in that game? It was that their big guy beat the holy hell out of the Bruins that entire game. And that's why Gonzaga was in that game. And that should, now looking back, that was a giant flashing red light indicator that the Bruins are going to be in trouble
weakness,
once they start dealing with big physical teams. And that kind of leads me to my overall take on this right now. And I am a little flummoxed and I'm a little confused, and I'm not confused. I'm just like, I don't know. I find it very ironic in this regard. Okay. Number one, when UCLA and SC and Washington, Oregon, but especially people would use this take on the LA schools. Talking about going to the Big Ten, and we're talking from the sense of football. And it's like, oh, these West Coast teams, they can't handle the physicality and yada, yada, yada. And they're going to show up, and these Big Ten teams are going to mash them into little bits. And they just don't understand how physical Big Ten defenses are. And they don't understand, how that's going to work. And, that may be true to some degree for SC, and that may be true to, whatever. For UCLA football this year, like, they came in as the most Big Ten team in the Big Ten, in that they had turned out to have a really rugged physical defense and an offense that really sucked. Yeah. Like, nobody said, hey, we want to be in the Big Ten more than UCLA this year based on their freaking play style, right? Yeah. It's just they Big Ten the hell of it and couldn't do any offense.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Completely contrary to what the stereotypical take would have been, right?
Yeah.
UCLA women's basketball coming to the Big Ten. Big, strong, physical, lots of players, elite talent. And they're kicking the living shit out of not just the Big Ten, they're kicking the living shit out of the country. Yeah. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Men's basketball, which I think everybody opined that you put Mick Cronin into the Big Ten and he's going to be like a pig in shit. Meaning, like, he came from the Midwest, Cincinnati, all that stuff. And those are the type of teams that he fielded. That's where he's comfortable playing in games like this.
Would you say that people would assume that he would cook?
There you go. Chili and all that. Yeah.
He would feast.
Yeah. But
he's been feasted upon.
Look, I just find it very, very ironic that if you would have asked a year and a half ago or whatever, and I know, regardless of how bad UCLA's team was last year with all the turmoil and change, but if you would say that Mick Cronin knew that he was going to the Big Ten and had the ability to kind of recruit his team and get the players that he wants or whatever, and then they get there and UCLA football is a more physical team relative to its conference than UCLA basketball with Mick Cronin as their coach.
Yeah.
I would have been surprised by that statement and by that outcome. Yeah. But here we are, and that's what it looks like, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I wonder, like, would Mick Cronin swap rosters with, any of these Big Ten teams just so that he had guys that would, punch and fight and scrap and claw to the degree that he wants without having to, like air them out in public and call
probably.
guys out by name. And I wonder if that's true or not.
I mean, all right, so let's get let's get into it a little bit because this is the team that Mick Cronin put together. These are the guys that he recruited, and unfortunately, he's not bringing in 5 stars. That's just how it is. He wants to get the players that want to play for him, that plays his style, but does that equal success? So far, it hasn't. We're on a 4-game losing streak, and there are still questions about, and it's not just me, like a lot of the media that covers UCLA is wondering, why does he keep Dylan Andrews in the game so much? Why isn't he starting guys like Sebastian Mack or Lazar Stefanovic? Why isn't Daimara getting more time on the court? And it's, he said this, I think it was after the Maryland game or after the Michigan game. He wants to give more time to players that do what he says. That's cool to a fault, because what if the only guys that do what you say are not the guys that are producing? Hence, Andrews, Sky Clark,
Mara to some,
but and then obviously guys that are doing, this is why I wanted to follow the per minute stats rather than the per game, because Mara's producing, Eric Daly's producing, Bilodeau's producing, despite the fact that a lot of people are crapping on him. I mean, he's given all these minutes.
He's in a tough spot.
He's in a tough spot.
He's out there by himself.
I'm a Bilodeau fan.
A lot of times.
I do love Bilodeau and Daly. I love what they're doing.
I'm a fan of all these guys.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. But there are guys that can produce and there are guys that can't produce. And it seems like if Mick Cronin's trying to send a message, like, what are you?
Well, Mike, is this a complaint about that he has a short leash with some guys, the shortest leash with some guys, and with others, it's like, go out there and shoot 0 for 17 for 4-game stretch, and we're going to keep playing you. Is that kind of what it is?
I wouldn't say
it feels like that's what a lot of folks are complaining about.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Mara's got too short of a leash. Dylan Andrews got too long of a leash.
I'm not complaining about it, but it does seem like, and we saw this, we've seen this throughout his entire tenure. Like when Johnny Juzang would go cold, shoot like, 1 for 7, and he would still be in the game. It's like, why do you have this guy in the game? He's not even playing any defense, that's your bread and butter. It does seem like Cronin does play his favorites, and it does seem like he likes his veterans a little bit more, but I'm not questioning his methods. Actually, I am questioning his methods. What's happening? Why are the guys, how is Dominic Harris, who is supposed to be an excellent 3-point shooter, have so little minutes? It's stuff like that. Like, are you looking for guys that are going to be loyal to the scheme, or are you actually looking to win, which is what he was hired to do?
Yeah. And I would say this, as far as Mick Cronin's process, he seems to me to be, not only just a successful coach, a coach that has a vision, a coach that has a plan that normally works for him. And I am still willing to have faith that UCLA has the right men's basketball coach, and that there's going to be ups and downs. And I am, very much of the mind that I hope that he gets it figured out within a particular season, and then they can finish strong in whatever regard. Now, they have just eroded all of their cushion to give themselves the opportunity to finish strong, right? Because you can't finish strong if you're not in the NCAA tournament. Like, that's impossible. And so, do we want to see a Bruin team that misses the NCAA tournament again? Oh, hell no.
But now
if they started playing better right now, then they're probably then they're fine. But
they'll be fine.
You've lost 5 out of 6 games. If that trend line continues, then now all of a sudden you're not fine. And then it's like, well, here we are again, 2 years of experimentation and no NCAA tournaments. So, like I said,
but coming up, you have Iowa, Wisconsin, Oregon again, Michigan State.
Yeah, but you know what, Mike? It doesn't really matter if they don't play better, they're not going to beat any of these teams anyway.
Oh, exactly.
If they start playing better, then they will. And it's kind of obviously a silly thing to say, but my point being is, I still want to see if Cronin and these guys can get it figured out.
Oh,
and
totally.
peak in the season.
Mhm.
But that's the main concern I have is they don't have any more margin for error. Like they got to start getting it turned around now. And if this does go south, now all of a sudden you have 2 seasons in a row that were filled with drastic change. Last year, the grand experiment was all these foreign dudes.
Yeah.
And that didn't pan out well. And so then we said, okay, well, now you're going to get all these guys, from around. I mean, they still have a solid mix of foreign guys too, but now you're going to go with veteran guys and transfer portal guys, and it still went into the tank.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do next time? And then at what point are we like, what are we really doing here? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're a long way from that. We're still only in the middle of the season,
Mm-hmm.
but that's certainly a possibility now.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, if you said, well, the 5 of the last 6 games, this team looks like they're kind of, they're not in a good place. So if they continue to not be in a good place, then when do we start saying, well, is everything functioning okay around here? I'm not there yet. I'm not anywhere close to that yet.
I think it
But
depends on
it's-
how this season ends.
Yeah.
That Martin Jarman is going to have to really assess what's happening. I mean, UCLA has, according to Bro,
or
UCLA has a top 5 NIL, but they're not,
Bro.
well, at least in this last cycle, didn't really bring in a go-to guy, an absolute killer, an offensive player. Are they going to be able to do that again? They kind of whiffed on several high school recruits, and going to the portal works, but it seems like he has kind of like misjudged a few players.
and that's the danger when
yet-
we're going in the portal, right?
Yeah.
And you're counting
Right.
these guys to be producers as well. I mean, I don't know. College basketball is so weird though, because like you could get a big time freshman, and all of a sudden they're
Freaking Cooper Flagg scored 42 points. That was an ACC record, ACC and Duke record.
What's my? But
God damn it!
I'm just saying, like you could go get one of these
Yeah.
superstars, and they change your process. And all of a sudden
Exactly.
you got
Exactly.
Carmelo Anthony, and you're going to that title game.
Yeah,
but
the Carmelo teams can easily be Carmeloized.
there are costs to that too. And look at Rutgers.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
Rutgers has 2 top 10 picks supposedly, and they were
and they're
8-8
still
8-8
like
before they beat the Bruins.
maybe not even a top Big Ten team, but at least a top 3rd team, middle of the road team.
They should be much better than they are.
Exactly.
It doesn't always
Exactly.
work, and it's like I hope. I wouldn't be sad if the Bruins never get a 5-star football player again, because it seems like more often than not they get a 5-star and it just freaking throws the thing all out of whack. So
Thanks, Mike.
I'm not, Mike. Where are you? In fact, buddy.
Thanks, Moore. Thanks, Dante.
Oh, my drops got all screwed up. Scooby Doo said, "Where are you?" Anyways,
That's all right.
Shaggy said that. Anyways, but I'm not there with UCLA basketball. Obviously, I want them to be uber talented.
Oh, there's
and
still
spend their
plenty of
money and all that
time.
stuff.
Yeah.
But these are signs of concern. All right, I'm
Yeah.
done talking about this.
All right. Yeah.
Mikey, let's get the football. I guess.
Do it.
Do you think we drink too much?
No, we don't drink too much. Men face reality, women don't. That's why men need to drink.
I hate it when podcasters talk about what they're drinking.
What else am I gonna drink, Bob? A fucking Fresca?
We're not going to have any frescas tonight, but we do have a What's Bruin Symposium. What's Bruin Symposium?
Fresca in this economy?
Yeah, right. What's Bruin Symposium? Symposium is a conversation over drinks. That's what we're having here right now. Mikey's got a beer for us. What do you have over there, Mikey?
I have I love the Firestone. I got this Mine Haze. The first time I've seen this one, Brain Melter Hazy Imperial IPA. So I guess that would be an HI IPA. That is definitely a HIPAA.
Yeah.
That's definitely
Not a
something,
violation.
as we know of, but very good, very, very interesting.
Cool purple can.
Foretaste, and as you get used to it, I find this with a lot of the fruit IPAs. It takes a few sips to understand what they're trying to do. This is a really good IPA. Jake, what do you got?
I have the latest selection I got from my whiskey club with Eureka's restaurant, and it's Frey Ranch, cast strength, straight bourbon whiskey. I've had Frey Ranch before, and I actually liked it quite a bit. It's a distinctive kind of cylinder bottle with a big metal cork on it, which is kind of fun. But this is out of Nevada, North Nevada, way north of Las Vegas. But this cast strength bottle is 66% corn, 10% winter wheat, 11% winter rye, and 12% malted barley, which it makes it a kind of a unique whiskey. And it's super duper overproofed at 63 and 60, basically 64%, 126 proof. And it's good. I like it. It's one of these ones where there's a lot of flavor in there if your tongue can tolerate how hot it is. But it's good stuff. And I appreciate Frey Ranch and everything they do. So
it is so bizarre to me. And, I know we have a little bit of time, but whenever I drink a whiskey just as, it does have that heat. But I put it on the rocks and all of a sudden it's consumable.
Certainly
for me.
I like everything on the rocks as far as whiskey goes. Bill likes it neat, but I always prefer anything a little bit colder. But that's your preference, certainly. But with something like this, with this much, this is high proof, definitely want to put some in it.
Nice.
There you go. Here's Symposium.
Thank you.
Subscribe on the Patreon. Thank you. So let's get to the football talk now that we did do that. And the Substack. California. Just $2 a month. Football. Mikey, so we were talking last week about the transfer portal. I was talking earlier in the show about the transfer portal and kind of where Deshaun Foster and the UCLA football Bruins find themselves. And I am certainly not, unoptimistic about next year, but I can't find myself being optimistic either when you look at the fact that it's just so much turnover. And I know that's not unique to UCLA football, but I think I said this last week and I'll say it again. The offense, and this is according to, the projections.
Hi, bro.
The current projections from Bruin Report Online, Mike's outlet, but the current projections as of right now are the offense will have 5 new incoming starters that have never worn a UCLA uniform. So I know they're not incoming freshmen, right? They've played before. They played college football before, but that's including their quarterback and now maybe a wide receiver that transferred in.
Yeah,
that might be 6, and plus probably 3 offensive linemen and probably a running back, maybe or not, depending on how tasty of a burger Jalen Berger proves himself to be coming into next season.
This is a tasty burger.
Or whether some of the other running backs that enter the portal come back. So that's almost half of your starters, right? Maybe more than half of your starters, depending on what the numbers are going to be new, never been in the UCLA uniform before, never been in Deshaun Foster's culture before, never played under these coordinators before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a thing. And then the defense is in the same boat. As of right now, at least 5 of these incoming transfers are slated to be starters, and there's a complete mystery group playing at defensive line. Hopefully the injuries pan out and some of these big fellas get back in there, and then they're in a lot better shape than they are than if they're not.
Yeah.
But that's so much turnover that we just don't know what the heck's going to happen. So it's a big shruggy emoji, right? And so I just wanted to kind of go through first of all, do you have any thoughts on that particular take right there, Mikey?
Well, I think if a lot of people are looking at just UCLA, what they're doing, oh my God, so many guys left, so many potential starters. The first thing you want to think about is you don't want to go the USC route where you lose 20 guys and only bring in 6. So there's that. But as of now, UCLA has brought in 21 players, or has 21 players committed to transfer to UCLA, with 20 not exactly going out, but just 20 that have put their names in the portal, because not every Bruin that put his name into the portal to leave Westwood has left Westwood. There's still a chance for a lot of these players to maybe come back. I wouldn't. Obviously, these players want to do what's best for them. Coaches do it all the time. I don't see why student athletes get crap for doing the same thing.
No, this is a symptom of what the actual overall game has become I think more so
pretty much,
than any particular player or coach.
Yeah.
It's just.
But I mean, but you have guys like Clint Stevens, TJ Harding, guys that have not committed to DJ Justice, RJ Jones, Deshaun Morale Foster.
Deshaun.
A lot of these guys have not committed to other places. So if I was Deshaun Foster and they say, hey, I was looking around trying to find the best spot for me. I see what you've done here. I'd like to come back. Hell, why wouldn't Deshaun Foster say, come on in, let's do this,
No doubt.
But I think, going back to my original point, if fans are freaking out about so much turnover, you have to understand that this is happening everywhere except Clemson, because they don't have guys that transfer in. And that's a stupid model because that's not forward thinking. Anyway, also go Irish, take down the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is happening everywhere. This is just what everyone just has to get used to. You want to, at the end of the season, if you're not playing for something worth playing for, like for example, the college football playoffs, you are going to have some guys that are going to maybe sit out or try to or enter the portal right before you go into a bowl game, which personally, and I think there's talk about this, you got to move the transfer portal out of bowl season. It's just it's ridiculous. It is stupid. It's like, at the very least, keep the team together until after the season itself as a whole is over. Then go into, hey, what do y'all want to do now? But either way, like I said last week, I think you were a little bit more timid than I was about what is forthcoming with UCLA. I just like the fact that they kind of reloaded. Now we have to see if what they reloaded with is are they blanks or are they buckshots?
And that's really the point, is that I'm not, like I said, I don't know whether to be up or down on them. Certainly, I think getting more guys in than what left, or getting guys in to replace the guys that left, is certainly better than not replacing them. Like I said, the USC plan apparently.
Yeah.
But when you tell me how do I think UCLA football is going to be next year, it's like I don't freaking know. I mean, I think the best coaches now in this new environment are going to be the ones that can galvanize their team with a culture and get everybody pulling the same direction at one time. And when you have so many guys from so many different places, now to organize and get pulling in that one direction, who knows how it's going to turn out? That's what I'm trying to say. And the things about last year that I am kind of more on the positive side about are, number one, I think Deshaun Foster had the guys on his team for pretty much every game last year playing hard in those games. And so I think that speaks very well about the coach and the overall culture of the team. I think that Deshaun Foster picked the right defensive coordinator to replace the outgoing defensive coordinator that they were too cheap to retain at the end of last season because of the Chip Kelly ridiculousness. Yeah. Right. But that turned out not to be a loss at all. And last year's defense, it didn't start out as great as it had finished in 2023, but it certainly finished, I think, every bit as strong in a lot of ways, right? They didn't have the same amount of talent, but they were playing hard, making tackles, and they were a pretty darn good defensive team. And keeping that consistency from 2024 to 2025, I can't think of one of the continuity, I should say, is a very good thing. And you think that, with Foster and Malloy, those are two things that are continuity-wise help you build a better culture, and hopefully all the new faces in there can adapt and adjust. And then on offense, the giant albatross of Eric Bieniemy, Fredo Bieniemy is now gone. Thankfully, they did something to correct the absolutely catastrophic shortcoming of the team last year, which was the offense and how the offense was organized. And so now they hired someone who they think probably maybe a pretty nice hot coach in Sunseri, and that may be good too. But with all the new faces, and they're all going to compete in the spring, now we just have to see, how it's all going to shake out. And so my main point in all this, Mike, is just I don't know. We just don't know yet. And so we're going to have to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case for a lot of football programs. And you could say everybody's doing it, and that's true, but it just goes to show you across most of college football, year to year is going to be probably much more of a crapshoot than it used to be because of a lot of different factors. You know, how much money these teams have to pay year to year, how their previous season went year to year, how seductive is their coach to other players in the portal year to year, right? And those are all things that can change pretty dramatically from year to year, you know, based on who you hire as a coach and how your coach did and all that stuff. So, so in a way, this is a hope springs eternal argument in that no matter how bad it gets, geez, you know, they could always turn around. Look at Indiana, for Christ's sakes, right? You hire the right guy or you have the right circumstances, and it's off to the races. And I'd say with UCLA football, Deshaun Foster actually gets a better mulligan, a second swing at it than I was anticipating him getting when he comes into this last season. And he didn't overachieve by any stretch of the imagination, but by the end of the season, he hadn't really underachieved either. So I think Deshaun Foster and the UCLA Bruins are still relatively anonymous in the Big Ten next year with little to no expectations. Sure. And so Foster still has the opportunity to exceed expectations, right? So the way that it's tracking right now, that could happen. Or these guys could all be a bunch of prima donnas that were malcontents elsewhere, and they come in here and the program is a shambles and they win, a game or something, right? Like that's certainly the variance on this next season in my mind right now is huge. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trying to say. I just have no idea how it's going to go.
I posed this to you like 6 years ago, or whenever it was when Chip Kelly started and everyone talked about like, oh, year zero. This past year, should we consider that year zero for Deshaun Foster, or is everybody just on the Bruin battered syndrome, where it's like start producing now?
Well, that's the reason. There's no more.
Especially, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but especially because he was so late to the game and choosing his coaching staff and all that. Now it seems like this is the first fresh cycle where he can dip into the portal, recruiting, coaching, the coaching pool. That's why I asked.
Theoretically, the late start and all that, and he was the last choice in bad circumstances. Theoretically, that argument is in play, except for when you look at the actual circumstance of last year, where they had a ton of returning talent that could have exceeded expectations, but because of the coach they hired for the offense, it deflated. Yeah, Fredo made it impossible for them to overachieve.
I get you.
Right, and so as a boilerplate, that argument makes sense. But when you look at the particulars of UCLA and Deshaun Foster last year, it was a huge swing and a missed opportunity for Foster last year. And that's why I'm saying this is a mulligan for him, because he doesn't get the year zero. He had the opportunity to knock year zero out of the park and make it this is the building block of the program, and here come all the recruits and all that stuff. He had a chance to do what, to a lesser degree, I don't think they would have been ever as good as Indiana was last year, but they could have been another positive story like Indiana, and they wasted that opportunity. I am skeptical now of really any year zeros for any coach, other than like maybe someone going to like an Alabama or a Georgia or something like that, something where we know they're still getting the giant influx of their recruits, that kind of thing. But where is a year zero anymore for any coach?
Kellen DeBoer is on the hot seat already.
Well, I know. Yeah, I know. That, but yeah,
that was a bad choice.
Where is the year zero? Anybody's a bad choice after there's no good choice.
No doubt.
That was a bad choice by him.
Exactly.
There is no year zero anymore because of the amount of turnover. It's like, what are you really building, program cultural wise? So I don't know. I don't know how it's going to sort out. Like, do administrations have more patience with coaches given the volatility of everything, or do they have less patience because of the volatility of everything? I don't know. I guess it's all more volatile. But I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. And just looking at the amount of new starters they're going to have, and it's like, Mike, just a way too early Magic Man for this team next year. On offense or defense, who are your Magic Man for this team? Who is there for us to root for? Undeniably, he's like, oh my God,
I mean, if he comes back, I would say that's if he comes back. Like this is why this is the epitome of way too early. But I would love to see TJ Harden come back and just
And he's in the transfer portal, for Christ's sakes, Mike.
He is, but he has not committed anywhere. He could come back.
And that's true.
He could come back.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Let's say a guy that is actually still on the roster. This is another one too, because we don't know if he's going to be able to get another year of eligibility. But tight end Hudson Habermill, who wrecked his knee. He had a serious leg injury in spring, which kept him out of the season. But again, not guaranteed he'd be on the team. I would say, damn.
Right? That's my point. I have one default
the fact that I'm going to Garrett DiGiorgio, an offensive lineman.
What?
Right?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Right? Exactly. That's where we're at. It's like I don't know who's available. Yeah, I would say Titus.
Yeah, you go Titus. It has to be a wide receiver, right? Because it's the only place where there's familiar faces that are going to produce.
Exactly.
Mine is Quasi because I have a picture of Malcolm and Quasi, and forever the rest of my life, I want Quasi Gilmore to be an All-Pro Hall of Fame player because I got a picture of him and Malcolm holding helmets together. But that's it's literally like three choices. You go Rico Flores, who may
I was going to say Rico.
You go Titus, which is a strong choice, or you go freaking Quasi Gilmore. And other than that, it's like Jack Peterson. No, I don't think so. Jalen Berger, he's a tasty burger, but I mean, as a Magic Man, he didn't show us any magic last year, really.
I mean,
that's my point.
Is Berger a single patty or is he a quadruple decker?
I'd like to see him be a 4x4. Yeah,
exactly.
And who knows who the big star performance of next year are going to be? But just to tell you how crazy and volatile it is, who's your fucking Magic Man? Ask yourself that question.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then on defense, the same kind of question still.
I know, right?
On defense, Mike, give me a Magic Man on defense.
Who's remaining on defense? Who's remaining on defense?
Who are these guys?
Exactly.
John Vons.
Who played?
Really?
Some.
Really?
Like, who's on the defensive line? I'm like, yeah, it's just the turnover is crazy. But again,
that's my point.
Again, this is happening for every team. Some are taking hits. Some are taking their lumps a little bit stronger than others, harder than others.
That's right. So they could be good or they might not be. But just for the record, my way too early Magic Man are two guys I hope are well. And it's going to be just like last year. Everything hinged on Jay Toia. Well, this year it's Gary Smith and Keanu Williams. You got those two guys, you got to start.
Who were
if you
both
don't got
injured
those guys,
last
that's
year.
my point. You got those guys, you got to start.
Damn
if you
it.
don't got those guys, you're kind of effed right in the A.
Damn
but it's okay. At least they got a lot of DBs running around back there. But it's fine. It'll all be okay. But like I said, if you ask me, do I think that what Coach Foster's strengths have been up to this point? Will he have a bunch of guys out there running hard and playing hard together? It seems like he can do that so far. So let's have faith in that. But otherwise, we don't really know shit. That's the point of this conversation. All right, Mike, it's gone over an hour, for Christ's sakes. So let's just get right to it.
Who are we? Jake, we're the podcast, the UCLA podcast. It's more punk than you.
The What's Bruin Show
is more punk than you.
You goddamn right.
You have no idea how much I love that.
That's good. That's right. Rain of Troy. Rain of Troy. They're not punk rock.
They're not punk rock. Rain of Troy is the My Chemical Romance of podcasts.
Yeah, I actually had it.
I'm just kidding.
Let's play one more time.
No, honestly,
it's more punk than you.
There. Actually inflated the sound last year. They were too low last time.
Honestly, I got to take that back. Corrections and retractions. Rain of Troy is way much better than My Chemical Romance. Yeah, I went there.
Thanks, Mike.
F pop punk.
But I do know.
Also, pop punk should be properly labeled as speed pop because there's nothing punk about them.
I think it's pretty fair. It's a pretty fair take.
Eat you all.
But Michael Steele, it's not punk rock. Alicia D'Artola. James H. Williams. Will, you're freaking who else? I don't know. Whatever.
They're ska punk. I'll accept that. They're the Mighty Mighty Bosstones and the Operation Knivies of the world.
Anywho, Mike.
I love you guys.
We love you too. All right.
Love you.
This is What's Brewing with You.
What's brewing with you? You ask me. What's brewing with me? Yeah. What's brewing with you? What's brewing with me?
I'm so depressed.
What's brewing with
Welcome to my world, Jake.
Yeah, I know.
You gonna start listening to The Cure?
Maybe. I don't know.
Dude, Disintegration is a great album.
It is. Yeah, it's a little too 80s for me, but yeah. I just listened to Boys Don't Cry the other day. But.
You know what's weird? Sidebar.
Yeah.
So I was actually never really into The Cure. Like, obviously, I listened to like all their stuff, but you know, all the stuff that was in K-Rock. Show me how you're blah 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 blah. And because of all the pop stuff that was forced down my throat, was never a fan. Our friend Matt,
Laconic
Matt. One day he was like, we had this conversation. He was like, you need to
deep dive on The Cure.
Take a couple, down a couple beers, smoke a joint, listen to Disintegration.
Why does every conversation with Laconic Matt start with, you need to down a couple beers and smoke a joint? Like, it's like.
Because it's correct. But I did what he asked. I listened to Disintegration and oh my God. The Cure was way darker than than what K-Rock.
Oh, absolutely.
Threw at me.
Yeah.
And that was my fault as a youngster, going, just again listening to what the media threw at me. You gotta just.
If you deep dive on any particular album from any particular artist that had some sort of success, there's probably stuff that you're gonna like.
Doing your own doing your own research on stuff like music, cool.
Yeah.
Doing your own stuff on doing your own research on stuff like vaccinations, anyway, that's my rant. Anyway, what's brewing with me? Yeah, no, it was just a very bizarre week. Just trying to, like I said, stuff. I've had a couple of friends who lost their stuff in the fires.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Students that I work with, they lost their homes in the Palisades. But to see the city come together, like, I always thought the whole like hashtag input your city strong, cheesy. But when it happens to you, you're like, well, shit, this city came together.
How else are you going to do it, right? It's got to be something cheesy because that's what everybody bands behind.
Exactly. And it was just to see people
Simple
go
slogans.
like, okay, like I'm saying this just for an example, but I actually, I went to go donate stuff, especially for pets out in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I volunteered at the Pasadena Humane Society and also at Pasadena City College. I just felt like I wanted to do something. And I did. I was helping out with water distribution there. And it's not something that I even like right now, I feel weird just talking about it because I don't care about
the accolades for it.
Yeah. I just knew that people needed help. And if there was any way that I could do that, cool. The awesome thing is like, I'm just putting all these, these water stacks of cases together and people are coming to me going, hey, how can I help out? I'm here to volunteer.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm not the organizer here, but if you want to help me out, I'm just stacking stuff. I'm helping families in need take cases of water to their car. They're like, dude, let's do it. That was awesome. Just to see, nobody gave a shit about their teams or their politicians that made it into office. They were fucking worried about their city and their people.
Absolutely.
And it was awesome to see. And it's just like, I have friends that coworkers that live in Santa Monica. Every day I was asking them, are y'all cool? You good? You in the evacuation zone? One friend was close to it, one coworker, but luckily she only evacuated for a night. This shit's real. And this is what, this is kind of what we live for, just to help each other out. And that's the golden rule, do unto others as you want done unto you. But it was just great to just see, like, whether it was in the affluent area of Pacific Palisades or the, more, lesser affluent, there were still some really good freaking houses out in Pasadena.
Altadena is a weird neighborhood.
It definitely
certainly
is.
It's not the Palisades.
But just exactly.
It's a weird,
and then you have like out in Sylmar and Hollywood, and then I even texted you guys because there was something like
all these
out in just a few exits down the street where there was a fire, which was from what I heard has been extinguished. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here. I'm just loving the fact that everyone came together and was like, fuck
it is
this.
wonderful.
This is our city. We need to take care of each other. And that for what LA gets crap for about being like, oh, I'm so Hollywood and whatever. This week showed exactly what LA was.
And it's a weird city because we're so spread out and there's so much.
It's fucking huge, man. It's such a big ass city. And everyone's like, how can I help?
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Anyway, that's my rant /
what's brewing with you?
What's brewing with me? Jake, what is brewing with you?
No, Mike, it's pretty much a lot of the same stuff. I have a lot of the same feelings. I'm not going to.
Were you called out?
To rehash
it.
This is the first time I haven't actually been deployed on a fire. The last 5 or 6 of these that have happened every year or two I've been out on, and just because of the nature of my present assignment.
Because you text us whenever any random thing kind of happens.
And so like I volunteered to go out on the weekend, but we just didn't get deployed. But I've been trying to do things, to stay helpful and, in the time I have available. And I'm right there with you, Mike. And so, I appreciate the city, and I feel very bad for all of, my friends and family, and all my friends and family I don't even know that are out there as Angelinos that have been affected by this or displaced by this. And, just do what Mike has just talked about, and that's
LA strong, bitches.
Whatever way you can find to contribute in a positive way to this, as opposed to the very few people out there that are making it more negative. Like like I said, the first couple of these fires started by some sort of natural disaster sort of incident sort of thing, the high winds, the crazy winds, all that stuff, and then of course as soon as a couple fires start, then you get people out there that are
oh my god, fry those effers! I swear to God, like. So, Jake, I've talked.
Definitely, throw the freaking book at them, and if you see anything suspicious like that, please make sure to report it and all that stuff.
Quick sidebar:
get these people arrested.
I went to my buddy's Audioban on Friday night, who have a show in downtown. As we were leaving, an illegal fireworks show happened. I was like, we're literally pulling out of the parking lot and coming from the direction of Dodger Stadium, although it wasn't Dodger Stadium. Some idiot or group of idiots was putting on an illegal fireworks show. And I get that, we get that 4th of July, East LA, that's what we do. Now's not the time. Yeah. Like, what the hell, people? Read the room. Read the city.
Well, I just,
damn it.
Don't be launching explosives into the air really anytime when it's not legal. But California's pretty strict on these things. Yeah. But especially when there's, hurricane style winds ripping through the city at all times.
Did you see that video of the McDonald's that was just on fire with the flames going? I was like, wow, that's punk rock.
That's more punk rock.
That's nature. Being
anywho,
that's nature being a dick.
Yeah. So Mike, there you go. Let's come back next week, and hopefully we'll have some better news from Bruin basketball, men's basketball. Hopefully women's basketball keeps it going strong. Football, who knows, we'll have news or not. We'll have to wait and see. The kind of transportal window is closed. But we'll be back next week, seeing what's going on, and stay safe out there. If I know we're not through it yet, but hopefully we're getting control of it, and do what you can to help. And until next time, Mikey, what do we say?
Love you, Bruin Nation. Love you, LA. Go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.